Oh, nobody can hear me. That's what you're talking about. You missed all my wonderful comments about my low neck sweater and my boobs. I'm wearing this so you can enjoy my cleavage today, is what I was saying. I don't have a lot of cleavage, but what I have is there for you to enjoy. And, of course, being muted somewhat interfered with my ability to communicate with other people. So it was like somebody wrapped me up in a burqa and sold me at a Middle Eastern slave auction. Stuffing tips, huh? Yeah, okay, that's a good idea. Just to stuff my bra a bit, you mean, to make myself look a little bit bigger? I am definitely an A cup. Yeah. I have to go to a special bra maker to get bras fitted for my small size. Anyhow, today's topic is philosophy and cognitive functions, but I'm, as always, happy to deviate from the topic ascribed, or prescribed, I guess, or proscribed? No. Indicated would be the best word. Hi, Becky O'Coin. Kim's not here. Kim went to go work for a client at their house, which is very unusual, but we've been having water leakage issues here at the house, especially in the salon, where the main body of the house was built way back when in the early 20th century. It's a craftsman home. It's really well built and there were no problems. But there was an add-on sometime later that includes the salon and the laundry room and the back porch, and that's where the leak comes in. Anyway, that's not very interesting. Mangastar is going to be Kant for the night, huh? What does that mean I have to be? Do I have to be some sort of utilitarian or what? It's philosopher cosplay tonight here on Talking with Business People. Get out your fake beards. Get out your old-fashioned suits and ties. Someone gets to be Bertrand Russell. Somebody gets to be Kant. I guess that's Mangastar already claimed it. You described FETI as agreement and FITE as attachment. What single word definitions are used for SI, NE, and NISE? Well, that's a tricky question. I don't know if I can come up with a single word answer for that. NISE, I would say, is execution by a pattern, and NESI is ideation by a self. So you're not seeing any comments here? Are you asking me that, or are you telling me that? If you are not seeing any comments in the chat, then there's something wrong with your chat. You should refresh, because I see the things in the chat just fine. If you're talking about comments someplace else, then I don't know what you're talking about. Everything is made out of water? Oh, every one thing is made out of water. Okay, well, if I were going to try to say that everything is made out of water, therefore water is the only thing that matters in the universe, I'd point out that it'd be way too dry if we didn't have any water, and nobody wants that. Talk about chapped lips. Talking about chapped whole body if you don't have any water. Your whole body chapped. Imagine that. Your whole body chapped just like lips. All chapped all around. I'm not trying to steal your water, Mangastar. I'm not trying to steal your air either. Okay? You can have your air and your water. I got my own air and water over here. So, the reason it doesn't really work as single word definitions for SINE and NISE, Hal Petback, is because interface functions interface with judging functions because they replace action functions in the role that that action functions have with knowing functions. So interface functions are active in the sense that they're external and they're responsive. So they go through this sort of pattern of put, get, receive information, put, get, receive, etc. And so the reason that NE and SI are combined is because of the way that extroverted intuition works as an attentional manner. It's an attentional manner that gets information from several sources. It gets it from SE, so I can start stories up with looking at things on the wall. There was once a magnifying glass that was purple, and then go from there. It can also get information from SI. Let me remember something to start a story off of, for example, or reference an experience. So they work in coordination with each other like that. And SE-NI, in contrast, says SE needs to know when to act, when to pull the trigger, and what to pull the trigger on. NI recognizes patterns and will say, this is representative of an opportunity that you should take advantage of by acting now. So it's a different, there are different ways of going about managing the duosphere, which is to say the metaphysical and physical planes combined and the interaction between the two of them. And I think that that's really what cognitive functions is all about. It's about managing the interactions between experience and meaning and vice versa. For the people, and in general, people are more experience focused than meaning focused, which means they're more sensory. Intuitives are more rare because, well, and this is a weird question. Why is it the case that intuitives are more rare? It's obviously an impossible question to answer. It would, all the evolutionary answers are totally unsatisfactory to me because it just doesn't make any goddamn sense. It makes no goddamn sense that in the last 66 million years, humans evolved from, small, maybe multi-cell, but very small organisms into human beings in 66 million years is ridiculous. And the last major extinction event was 66 million years ago. So we're talking about mile-high tsunamis covering the globe, wiping out all significantly sized life on the planet. So, I just don't buy the evolutionary explanations. They don't make any sense. We've got trees that have a lifespan of 1,000 years. And we've got species that breed every 13 years or something like that. It doesn't make any sense. So, anyway, regardless of that, besides the fact that evolutionary explanations don't make any sense, the best explanation I can come up with is that, it's a system of some sort in which the system operates at equilibrium, more or less, when the ratios are a certain amount. Presumably, if there were to be inserted into the population a much higher percentage of intuitives, for example, then the system would undergo some sort of state change. We can think of a corollary as a lake in which you have a certain number of mostly what are called sunfish and a small number of largemouth bass. This is a study they did, okay, on state change dynamics. And it's a very interesting study because it shows the math of state changes from equilibrium to equilibrium. So in this lake, which was isolated somewhere in Canada and wasn't connected to any other lakes, didn't have any rivers going out of it, basically, there was a population of sunfish that was large and a population of largemouth bass that was small. I think it was in Canada. Anyway, wherever it was, it doesn't matter. This system stayed in equilibrium. Hi, LJ. This system stayed in equilibrium like this. The population stayed approximately equivalent in a ratio to each other, generation after generation of fish. Okay. Then they started introducing more largemouth bass in. The largemouth bass ate the sunfish. Now, normally, the sunfish ate the the baby largemouth bass to keep the population of largemouth bass down in general. And so, you know, the more the bass reproduced, the more food there was for the sunfish. So the more the sunfish reproduced, so it counterbalanced itself out. But when they artificially added adult largemouth bass into the population, then it broke that equilibrium and created a new equilibrium where it was now almost all largemouth bass, and there weren't any more of these lily pads where the sunfish and the bass had sheltered their young before, but the bass young didn't really need the lily pads, but the sunfish did, and yeah. It changed the whole ecosystem, and then they reached a new equilibrium where the populations once again remain stable, the various elements in this ecosystem. And the state change math goes like this: right before it switches into the new equilibrium, it becomes very volatile and bounces up and down and all around, and it's unpredictable. So, hi, Kara Glow. Am I really for once on the right time and at the right place to live chat? Yes, you. And we just got started too. We're only 12 minutes in, so I usually do these things for quite some time. So I think that the state change equilibrium issue is basically the explanation for population dynamics within personality types. Remembering that personality types are existent relative to one another in frequency, just as the bass and the sunfish are. It's not total number of bass in the world and total number of sunfish in the world. It's given within a given population, they reach certain states of equilibrium, right? So if you think about an equivalent in terms of types, you kind of think, well, in order to have equilibrium populations, then, I mean, I don't know what would happen though if they went if you were somehow to artificially introduce, because I think given enough physical and metaphysical fluidity, populations will gather into sort of like populations. Like there's probably not a whole lot of diverse types here. This population of people watching this and people participating in this stuff is not going to be representative of the population as a whole. Most of the population as a whole isn't going to be interested in this kind of stuff in general because it's too abstract. Well, Donald Trump, of course, is desperately interested in it. He's our wall building commander in chief. So yeah, it's like, okay, if it is in fact the case that in a general group of any size, let's say a group of 1,000 people, that the most stable group would be one with the percentages of types that represent the actual demographics of it, whatever that is. And we don't have any kind of reasonably accurate numbers on it. We don't know. And it's impossible to tell from our own experience because obviously if you're here, you're probably an intuitive. It's not necessarily the case. There are sensors who participate in these things as well. Welcome, sensors. You're certainly welcome. I'm not Raul Diego. I don't condemn you. But okay, I'm not saying there's an absolutely stable human group. But what I'm saying is one could argue that certain populations of people as distributed by type would be more or less volatile in terms of certain metrics of social stability that we could establish. Now, I mean, I don't know if you could ever get a completely natural test of that where you have sort of controlled against all the variables, but let's say you could get a decent style test of that somehow, put together a community of people and try and, like, let's say 10 different population nodes, you put together communities of people of 1,000 each, and you distribute them with different type distributions. Okay. You could see how those communities interface within themselves and I guess presumably externally. If you could isolate this whole thing as have like go up the Canadian wilderness or whatever, establish 10 communities. Well, I mean, the thing is you could pick a whole bunch of different metrics and measure them against all those metrics. You could say, cooperation as measured by civic jointedness. Cooperation is measured by overall economic produce. You can measure it on lots of different metrics. They'll all be informative in some sense because you can compare against the different populations of different population distributions. So if you had a large enough sample, like 1,000 people in each group, and the population distributions are distinct enough, you should be able to draw some pretty meaningful conclusions, something like that. But of course, it will require a huge amount of resources and a lot of volunteers and a big operation to put some sort of test like that together. But the question would be, I mean, because I'd like to think that the community put together that was comprised mostly, let's say you had alpha quadra community. And you could do each of the quadras by themselves, and then you could do other permutations. If you had just alpha in the community, I think everybody would get along pretty well. They'd probably be pretty productive. I think the ENTP and the ESFJ would get a lot of shit done. The INTP and the INTP would sort of tend to the side and stroke their beard, whereas the ISFJ would cook for us. I'm not really familiar with Plato's Utopia. You'd have to give me the specs you're trying to articulate here. Because this theory also shed light on some things like, for example, chaotic places like in the world, like Israel and Palestine. I mean, I think those sort of conflicts are not type related for sure. I mean, the reason that the Palestinians and the Israelis are in conflict is because the Israelis came and stole all their land and took it over. And claimed, well, we didn't steal it because we used to have it a long ass time ago. Bullshit. I mean, come on. That just doesn't fly, right? It would automatically revert to a reflection of the whole of society if there are 1,000 people. Well, what I'm saying is you parse out the populations according to the dictates of the experiment. So if you have 1,000 people and you put 1,000 ENTPs together, what happens? You know. You have to be pretty confident about your testing of the people as to what types they are. But that would be a funny community. You've got 1,000 ENTPs all trying to spew their ideas at each other. They wouldn't get probably a whole hell of a lot done. They each get shit done on their own. Nobody would really help anybody else. Probably. A successful metric for human behavior can stem derived from long-term human prosperity, including economic and environmental stability, etc. None of them would go what they have on their shoulder. Like there's this one ENTP dude that I type policed who was a douche. I know I wouldn't get along well with him at all. I forget what his name was. Something dumb. Communities need a variety of people types in order to function. Well, I mean, I think that's a fair hypothesis. I'm not sure it needs the entire variety of people that we currently have. I think that it's sort of nice and symmetrical and ethically gratifying to say that, to be like, we need all 16 types and they all work together to form a greater whole. Okay, well, maybe, but I don't see any evidence of that. A particular type is not necessary or useful or something. I'm just saying there's not really any reason to presume that the status quo is the best way it could be. Rulers, warriors, and merchants. Merchants get rich and own things. Warriors are cared for and otherwise have okay lives. The rulers are cared for but can't own anything, can't have a permanent partner. And is there any other class of people? Or just those three classes? Let's see. I would probably get irritated at the lack of perspectives in an ENFP only group. I would probably get irritated by that as well. Or, I mean, there's plenty of perspectives. They're just all not judged by logic. ENFPs are very nice. Thank you. I appreciate that, ENFP mastermind. Just agree with and get along with everybody. Well, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that last part, but we are very nice deep down inside of us, for sure. How would a community of all INFPs survive? I don't know. They'd be there for each other. That's the important thing, okay? They would really, really be there for each other. Status quo has some merits, frankly, needs an overhaul. But I mean, I'm not saying. The other thing to note is, I'll get to that question in a second, thinker. I'm not suggesting we do anything, right? I'm not suggesting we take any sort of policy action, or let's segregate the ISFPs over there. I'm not saying anything like that at all. Okay, just clear. Saying that that there's no reason to presume things that people say a lot. Like if you hear socionics, they talk about how society needs all the types and they all fit together to make a beautiful tapestry or whatever. Well, there's no reason to believe that either. So, all right, or if it's a thing, if you're just asking me to critique the idea or the expression or those words, nothing of nothing, I would say, I mean, it suggests to me that one might use a frame where one attempts to find nothingness, and then one attempts to make that frame nothingness itself somehow. I don't know. Hippie communes. No hippie communes, thank you. Or I had nothing of nothing. Something of nothing. Making something of nothing is, of course, not possible, but is an idea that we get. Making something of what would have appeared to have been very little resource. Making nothing of something, that we understand, right? Like, well, yeah, I had a good chance here, but I just made nothing of it and blew it. But making nothing of nothing, well, I guess I would say it wouldn't even be noticed because then there's no observation having occurred, I guess. Should just have a whole commune of INFPs, like say 1,000 or so, and one single ESTJ yell at them and control them all. Yeah, that would be ESTJ's dream. Surely different ENTP are on the spectrum, so the group would segregate out until they are all different and no longer ENTPs. Okay, well, see, that's a possibility, right? I don't think that's the truth. I don't think that, because if you got them all as like little kids, maybe there's adaptability sufficient in there for them to want to fill those niches. Because that's the thing about consciousness, presumably, is that it's the ability to metacognate and the ability to, means that it's conceivable. You take a little kid that's an ENTP right now, that if you put them in an environment where there's nothing but ENTPs, that they might start utilizing a manner of attention of FE more because they see themselves getting more results. And they might, as a consequence, shift over to a kind of knowing somehow and go, okay, well, and become an INFJ or something. So it's conceivable, I guess, if you have little kids. They're still a little bit more pliable in their brains. But I don't think people who have spent decades attending via a certain habitual matrix are going to change that because the circumstances make it the best adaptation. Even a very adaptable type like ENTP. I can't become left-handed even if it would help me become a baseball player. There are sustainable communities that resemble hippie communes, full of NF types. Maybe there is some data available there. Well, I'm sure there are. I mean, it depends what you mean by sustainable communities. You mean there are places where they produce enough economic, output to support themselves and ascribe to more or less communal properties things. I'm sure there are. But remember, those are fundamentally consensual operations, and that's the big distinction. If it's consensual, then it's really just a form of capitalism. It's just a form of group capitalism. Do you think consciousness is expansive, or do you think it's simply on-off? Well, what do you mean by expansive, and how does that differ from on-off? I need to have an explanation more of that question. Do I think consciousness is expansive? Like, do I think that consciousness exists on a spectrum up from unsophisticated creatures like bacteria all the way up through most sophisticated like human, that there's a spectrum of consciousness that goes along up with that spectrum of complexity? Oh, do you think an individual's consciousness has the ability to grow? Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. And I don't think there's any sort of thing like being awoke or enlightened that's binary. I would reject those things entirely. I would say that to state that you're enlightened or that you've achieved some sort of state of attainment of conscious optimality or something is to misassign an attribute to what could only possibly be maybe a stretch of time, descriptive of a stretch of time. Like there are stretches of time when I feel like, you know, that I'm just in the flow and just I'm at my best or whatever. Well, great. But there's also times when I'm act like a little baby and do other stupid shit, you know? So that's true for everybody. If it's not true for everybody, then that's not a good thing, really. It's like, if you're that superhuman in your spiritual awakeness, then you're fast asleep as far as I'm concerned. Using a communal farm type situation in general with their own rules and hoops to go through to be admitted. Yeah, well, that's fine. I mean, that's just, again, like I would say, is it's just a form of capitalism that these people decide to play lifestyle stuff with too. So if there are more people who vouch single payer healthcare to pass the bill, isn't that group capitalism? No, because it's not consensual, because participation is not consensual. So the commune people, they don't come and force us to go participate in it. That's the difference. Hi, Judy. I enjoyed the conversations last night. It helped me too. I like to fill out your questionnaire, but I don't know what the argumentational primacy is. I put some more words in there on that. I updated it a bit, and it says now more words because I've had that question a few times. Basically, defensibility of position, consistency of argument, and being correct or legitimate over effective, you know, stuff like that. Let's see. I asked because 0 times 0 multiplication has been said to be either about repeatedly adding a number or scaling. And for scaling and also the repeated addition idea, one way to show it is A of B. Okay. Let's be honest, people. Only EJR&D can rightly claim enlightenment. Don't forget about that dude who, what's his name? Okay. This is going to be scary. Guys, I'm going to reveal a truth that only 10,000 people in the whole world know. Maybe. Who was that guy? Fucktard? I don't remember what his name was. We ascribe it to democracy. It's not a magazine. Your idea on it seems to confirm the idea of 0. No, not Eckhart Tolle. He's kind of a silly guy too. Who's that fucker? He's like actualize.com or actualize.org. Is that what it is? Yeah. I've made fun of Eckhart Tolle before in videos. He's got a bunch of NI nonsense, right? It's just like, you're not saying anything. You're not fooling me. Oh, so you're saying the fact that I'm saying it's hard to imagine nothing of nothing, because you can't have 0 times 0. Is that true? You can't have 0 times 0. Well, because that's interesting if you can't, because it would suggest an awareness that there needs to be an observer for there to be a poop in the diaper. When you ascribe to democracy, aren't we operating under consent? Well, I don't. Look, the thing is, not everything that a democratic regime does is rights respecting. So I prioritize the respect for individual rights over the consent of the governed angle. So just because I'm among the governed and I participate in a democracy doesn't mean I consent to anything the government might choose to enforce. And I prefer to say that the better ethical calculus on the matter is one that respects individual rights ahead of government authority. Regardless of the legitimization metric of the government authority, it doesn't justify illegitimate behavior like rights violations. That guy's such a douche. I don't know who that guy is. What's his fucking name? I have it on the tip of my tongue, too. Hi, Sam Smith. First time watching you. You are really smart, but you don't need to show it. Love it, sub. Thank you. That's great. Nice to hear. I do need to show it, though, Sam Smith. It's very important to me. There does need to be an observer. Double slip theory, hello. Right? But I think it's interesting that math would sort of reflect that in saying that you can't have 0 times 0. It's kind of interesting. I'm glad the thinker up there. For those of you who want a link to the ordinals, I am going to do a video on that. In fact, I made on the ordinal assessments page now, there's a rules of thumb thing at the top that tells you how to interpret it. But I'm going to do a video too on it and sort of walk through the process of interpreting it as well. But if you want to put some numbers here, I might interpret 1 or 2 of them here tonight, demonstrating that on this as well. Let's see. Anything else in here? So other things about philosophy, since that's what the title of it says, I changed it a little bit. Like I added some stuff at the top of it that explains how to use it more. And I added some words on one of the boxes because people kept asking me what I meant by argumentational primacy. So I added some more words in that box. So as far as the philosophy thing goes and functions, one thing that I was really interested in a lot before I read about cognitive functions, basically, and then my interest kind of broadened into cognitive functions, but was theories of truth and understanding what truth is and people's perceptions about what it is. So the thing about truth, the thing that makes it such a compellingly grabbable concept for people is we understand that with physical reference, I can say true statements or false statements about this that are clearly true or false factually. There's no disputing its factual nature. Like I can go, this is a giraffe, and in no way, shape, and form is it a giraffe. There's no picture of a giraffe on it. There's nothing giraffe-like about it. And what links to what? The relationship live stream? The link I put? Oh, why did I put a YouTube link? Oh, because I pushed share, but I didn't push copy link. That's why. Copy link. Link copied to clipboard. There we go. Now it's the right link. Now it is. Okay. So reference, like a lighter in my hand, whether it's a giraffe or a lighter or something else. And then it seems pretty clear that there are statements that are true or false about it. And the reason it seems so clear is because it's a statement about matters regarding name of something, basically. When I say this is a giraffe, I mean the name of this is giraffe. And you disagree, and you say, no, all normal speakers of the language would agree the name of that is not giraffe. That is not true. So in that regard, the statement would be factually false. It's just that people don't really think about what's being said when they say that. When they say this is a giraffe, they're not saying, I mean, in no circumstances would you ever say this is a giraffe unless you're making a point about telling the truth or lying, right? Or false statements. Regardless, what I'm really saying is the name of this is a giraffe, and you'd say, no, that's not true, because we can check as a general thing if the name of this thing that looks like this is a giraffe. So those kind of statements make it very appealing to think that there's a universal truth or something. But there's another theory of truth that says it's not really the reality that's holding truth, and then there's words that carry it, which is what's sort of implied by the first understanding of it. But rather, it's just consensus about how they're put next to each other and stuff. So in that regard, it's not really a huge distinction, but the point I would make about truth is that we have to distinguish between kinds of things that we're talking about when we're talking about truth. If we're talking about physical statements or descriptions of physical fact that are checkable with empirics, like looking at truth in a different way, than if we're talking about statements of ethics, although there are those who would argue the statements of ethics are just as objectively determinate than we do when we're talking about statements of aesthetics, although most people wouldn't argue that aesthetics are objectively determinate, although I would. Then we do when we're talking about feelings or preferences and things like that. We operate in a world in which our respective grammars take into account the fact that we have two kinds of data sets. One that is accessible to everybody and is generally referenceable and therefore objective as a data set outside of us. And we have data sets that are subjective, that rely entirely on an individual reporting what they thought or felt or like that. You can't actually check against. So a lot of statements when we're talking about truth and falseness, we have to first differentiate between what kind of statements we're making and then what kind of metric we want to use to determine whether it's true or false. For a lot of kind of purposes, we just sort of assign a statement true or false as a status temporarily for the purpose of argumentation. Well, let's say it's like this. Let's argue about it now. That's how truth is used in debate, right? The one thing that's actually universal, though, is validity, and that's because it's implicit to the grammar. The grammar of English or of any language really contains like subject, predicate, object constructions, and those relationships require us to have conditional logic, basically, because we have different tenses. We can anticipate the future, and we can talk about the future even though it hasn't happened yet, and predict things. So anyway, that all links into sort of where TI comes from. TI is a function of language. And it doesn't really, TI only really manifests through languages, either talking languages usually, or it could be math languages as well. I'm saying that the idea of nothing is or could be not noticing the nothing. There's nothing because there's nothing, and nothing being noticed or thought about. Well, I mean, yeah, if nothing of nothing means that there's an implicit to it would suggest that there's an inability to be noticed because of its nothingness, right? You have to have some sort of identity, something distinct about a thing that one can distinguish from things around it. Are you directing that to me, Derek Norman, or to the thinker? I used to say I was ENTP. I recently realized I've been mistyped. I've been ESFP this whole time. Just another ESFP who took the 16 personalities type test and was foolishly convinced he was an ENTP briefly. Yes, I'm an ENTP. Yes, I'm an ENTP. I'm not an ESFP. I'm joking. I'm yoking, as Eric Thor would say. I am finna smash. I finna smash something. I don't know what, but I think young people in their slang are very interesting. I've always seen truth as a solid universal thing, but each person views it through their own subjective lens, and to get the truth, you need to be objective. Right. I mean, it's easy to think of truth as universal because there are certain statements that we would ascribe truth to and say it's very hard to argue against this. But I would say it's a better metric to talk about truth in terms of rhetorical slope. There are certain statements that are easier to argue successfully in favor of than others. It's a lot easier to argue successfully that we ought to take care not to run over children with our cars than it is to argue that it's okay if we run over a few children with our cars, right? It's a lot easier to argue the former than the latter. Amongst in any kind of a real argument with people who are actually saying, let's say, reflecting upon some sort of community policy. So, and look, to the person who was asking me about the, who's being a little bit more on the socialist arguing side, I am not opposed to all forms of governance at all. And I do understand that there are status quo realities that require government to be probably, at least for the short term or medium term, not strictly rights respecting, and that's just reality as it is. And I'm not necessarily advocating that even if I had the power to somehow compel society to be utterly rights respecting, it would even be a good idea necessarily. So I'm not an ideologue in any regard, and what I would say is that regardless, there are lots of positions that have varying degrees of rhetorical slope. The truth is not, in that regard, binary, and it's fine to assign the value of truth to things for the purpose of argumentation as well, which makes it conditional. So that's why I would say focus on validity is the universal, because things are always valid whether or not they're true. If I go, all pigs can fly, Porky the pig, therefore Porky can fly, it's valid even though none of those things are true. Jell-O. Jell-O is a dessert that is made by the Jell-O company. It's wiggly, it's colorful, it's cold and served as dessert. Becky O'Coin, understood myself to be an ENFP like forever. Then DSP said I was an ESTP and kind of flipped my world upside down. One of us is confused. Ha ha ha. Well, Buddy 7, he elf, because type doesn't exist. What do you mean type doesn't exist? Do you mean it's not possible to articulate distinctions between attentional? Do you think that attentional man in consistent configurations? Or do you think that because type descriptions can't accurately convey the complexity of human experience, that it's not possible to taxonomy people into groups? Or you haven't really thought about it that much? Is it possible that's the answer? Can you explain why we can't see our first and fourth functions? Well, we can see them. I mean, I can recognize when I'm doing extroverted intuition. I'm doing it right now. Okay, well, that's not answering any of my questions, really. I mean, you're saying if you're saying type descriptions can't accurately contain a human's complexity, that's true. But neither can mammals accurately contain the complexity of all the species underneath the category of mammals. It doesn't mean that mammals don't have real distinction from reptiles. Right? So, I mean, you got to remember, what do you want the taxonomy to do? And that's what it is first and foremost. It's a taxonomy of consciousness. People pay attention in different ways. And some of those ways are exclusive of one another. So I can chew gum and think about philosophy at the same time. But I can't put on a play where I'm acting like a buffoon on stage and also think about philosophy concurrently, at least not and do both well, right? I have a limited amount of attentional I have energy to direct. And it's also the case that some people want to think about the statements they encounter in the world, the claims that people make, and the words that people say by critiquing them against consistency matrix, like I do. Or some people by critiquing against a social determination, like I don't like that guy because he seems arrogant, or I don't like that guy because he seems not very warm, or maybe he seems incompetent, or whatever. Some people want to critique by those things. Some people critique a person by the utility of that person to themselves. And while it may be true that everybody does a little bit of all of those things, it's also very true that most people have a preferred approach to dealing with the world, and that there are finite number of those approaches. and we can taxonomy those. So all that stuff is true. That's what the thing you're trying to dismiss here. Type, the type is like the shorthand, half-assed quick map to things. It's not the actual understanding of the thing at all, which by understanding cognitive functions, you understand things differently in two ways. You understand, number one, that a lot of your own decision-making and behaviors and thought processes are reflexive rather than considered. And number two, that you can recognize these patterns of valuing matrix, different kinds of values and stuff like that in different people, and see that they do in fact display them consistently over time. Okay, let me see what else is said here. This person up here says, I'm an EHP as well, and I'm curious as to what in my childhood development would have caused me to evolve into an EHP. I don't know, but the thing is, I'm pretty convinced that my own daughter was born something close to the type that she is now, which is some sort of action type, either an SE dom or an NE dom. And I'm pretty convinced my daughter's an EHP, but I would buy ESTP for sure as well. That's a possibility. She's not as creatively minded as I am, and there's other reasons why you might want to think she's an ESTP. So, oh yeah, I'll get back to that first and fourth thing. Anyway, I saw her from birth on, and she had much the same personality as a newborn infant as she does now. So I don't know. I don't know where it comes from. My hypothesis is if it does develop in childhood, it's ENTPs are spoiled, that we're very well loved and taken care of, and that's why it's safe for us to put our feelings in the 7th slot and just play pretend all the time. It has to be safe for that. And then we develop these very active intuitions that create a lot because we've been nurtured in that kind of an environment that allows us to be that abstract and basically useless. I mean, we're not very useful people particularly. So let's see. We're blind to our first and fourth. Well, no, we're not blind to either our first or our fourth. That's insane. I'm very well aware when I'm doing extroverted intuition. I'm very well aware of the fact that I checked for a second with my TI there to see if that made any sense at all, and then quickly realized, no, it didn't, and I'm going to extrovertedly intuit about it right now by just yammering away at it. It's true that because we thread it into everything so thoroughly that we're not as willfully aware of it as we are, say, our tool function, that we don't seem to have as good a capacity to turn it off. That when we're not doing extroverted intuition, we're using our fourth function, introverted sensing, instead, and we don't really have any alternative. We're using one of those two all of the time, pretty much. So there is that aspect to it, but of course I can tell when I'm doing introverted sensing stuff. It's when I'm keeping track of shit and writing stuff down and remembering things and taking a bath and going, right, that feels good. That's me doing SI. When I get into bed and it's comfy and I'm loving it, when I'm paying attention to that I'm hungry or thirsty, like right now I should have some water, my mouth's getting dry. I tend to ignore it. I tend to have to pay attention function, so I don't love to attend to it, but I certainly can and do. Sometimes I like it more than others. When I'm feeling down or blue or traumatized in any way by the world, then I really want SI. That's my solvency there. I get in the bath and whatever. Well, he's therefore more willful comprehension of 2 and 3. That's true. Because they're both tools. The tool function is a tool function, and the third function can be employed as a tool function, even though it mostly functions as an absolute value. And the first can't be willfully turned on and off. It just takes places with the fourth. We're mostly first. When you go from any to NI, you become depressed. Then you're doing NI wrong. I don't know. I don't have that experience. NI makes me happy. If you're using it in a creative endeavor, then it should make you happy when it works, when you find the thing that pops, you know? He said we can go in circles of thinking and should get outside input from people to help us figure out a type. Well, I mean, I agree that's a good idea. It doesn't hurt to get input from outside people. It's like if you do the ordinals, I was telling somebody else, it's still self-reporting. If you want to do another check on it, you have somebody else fill it out for you to say what you think they think you are. You know, somebody who knows you well. It is a luxury to be able to be comfortable enough in life to explore these useless and unpractical ideas and fantasy worlds we have and all the time we waste on that shit. Exactly. It's a luxury. We're a spoiled type. We do spend much of our life trying to maintain that spoiledness, right? Like I spent stretches of my life where I've worked 60 hours a week, but by and large, I prefer to play around as much as I can get away with, you know? Do you want a can of purple? No. I feel when I go from it, I just read that one already. Oh, he said we can go in circles of thinking and should get out. Yeah, I read that one already. NI solves problems. Well, I mean, solves problems. NI is a way of knowing. So somebody who's NIFE or NITE might know the answer to the problem without necessarily having to do the deductive work. I just knew it was this. I can just tell. I didn't have to. I can't exactly. I knew. I think that's very feasible. But TI could also work it out and go, well, this is why this is the answer. So those are both ways to solve a problem like that. Other kinds of problems are not solved by either of those things. Like sometimes, you just need to kiss the girl, for example. And that problem is solved by SE. You might say NI tells you when, but sometimes the problem is you just need to do it because you're being shy, if you're a dude. And it may be kind of badly timed and sloppy, but the important thing is it gets done. So, okay, that's SE then that needs to be done to solve that problem. Sometimes you need some creative other option that nobody's thought of because this problem is intransigent. In that case, you need NA. Taylor's an ESTP. Let's see. What's your thoughts? Okay. Do you think a potential ENTP could have developed into an ENFP via childhood trauma, neglect, etc.? I don't think in general ENFPs are reflective of childhood trauma or neglect, although probably maybe more so than ENTPs, but I think they also would just sort of display more impact from it than ENTPs would. I'm aware of how the role function relates to the dominant function. How does it relate to the inferior function? Okay, so by role function, I presume you mean socionics role, which is the 8th, but you could mean MBTI role, which is the 3rd. If you're talking about the 8th function and the 4th, the answer is they're mirrors of each other. So the 4th is conscious and weak. The 8th is unconscious and strong. In other words, the extent that you're conscious of your 8th function, you are conscious of its weaknesses. To the extent that it's strong, you're unconscious of those elements of it. And with SI, with the 4th slot one, you're very you're conscious of both. But the point is that it's like SE comes in. For me, SE comes in and saves the day on SI's sloppiness all the time. So it's like I didn't really keep track of something. That's okay. I'll just hurry up and pound the shit out right now and then boom. So I mean, I don't know. It's SE is something I don't really get at all, right? As my 8th slot function. I don't understand it. I don't understand what makes me motivated to get up and do something at this moment and not at some other moment. But I do understand that that I get most things that are worth anything in my life accomplished by doing something and not just by talking about shit. It's like my SE's got to kick in for my NA to be purposeful. SE could also put me in jail. Well, probably not me. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I do believe this notion that I do believe this notion that says that if your 8th slot function, you're unlikely to misuse it. So if I'm going to be bad in some way or ethically questionable, it's not going to be via SE. It should be kind of a brutish way to be it. It would be via something like NI maybe, or FE. You know, it'd be meme with FE or something. Could that have something to do with execution failure via ADHD, or would you say just another way to look at 8th slot SE? I think it's just another way to look at 8th slot SE. You know, I think ADHD and dominant NE are the same thing, basically. You might say some of the INFPs or INTPs are also ADHD, but I don't really think so. I think it's basically just ENTPs, ESTPs, ESFPs, and ENFPs who are ADHD. And of those 4 types, the only 2 that can really, I think, successfully do amphetamines as a treatment for it are ESTPs and ENTPs. Because I think amphetamines don't mix well with FI. If you do a fair amount of amphetamines, when you're coming down, a lot of people experience sadness, depression, other negative emotions that I've never really experienced, because I've got my FI more or less entirely replaced with SI. So what I experience is tiredness, and I want to rest, and I want to eat and stuff like that. ENFPs, well, I mean, look, I'm not advising against anybody trying shit if they feel like they're ADHD. I'm just saying that FI people seem to have trouble handling it. Amphetamines. My experience with amphetamines has been great, though. I mean, I handle them fine. And, I mean, I've had my moments of going overboard with them. You know, it's easy to handle Adderall, in part because I have a finite amount of it, so I can't just go crazy with it, and in part because I take it in the morning and then it's worn off by the end of the day, end of a long day. I'm tired. I go to bed. I get a good night's sleep. Hopefully, if I don't take too much, I take it too late in the morning or something. So I can basically exist on a regular schedule. There was a long time ago, back in the early 2000s, I was a methamphetamine addict, and that was a little trickier because you smoke it, or I smoked it, and you know, you find yourself hitting that pipe every couple hours or whatever, and then you're up for days, and you just need more sleep than that. Where do you see 5th slot SE with SI DOMs? I think it's very effective, and I think everybody's 5th slot is ultimately very effective for them. It may not be something that it's something that other people are going to go, why don't you take more advantage of this thing that you're good at? That's what your 5th slot's going to be like. So the thing about that is, like, everybody's strong in their 5th slot. They SIFE, they get all kinds of shit done around the house. A lot of like cleaning and they have their routines and taking care of the animals and all this kind of shit that Kimberly does is very SISE. But she's following through on a bunch of known things. If you have dominant SI, you know what the plan is. If you're at a moment's loss of like, what should I do right now? You remember, well, I've got this task to do, so I should do those. And that's how the SISE relationship works so harmoniously with first and fifth. A monotonous 40-hour-a-week job is terrible for an NE user. That's true. NE users get depressed when they feel their freedom is stolen. That's true. How would you coach someone in debate with TI if they had to defend a view that wasn't their own? I mean, I do that all the time. I mean, in debate, in switch-side debate, you have to debate both sides of every resolution in any given tournament. With public forum, it's a coin flip, so in theory, you could win the coin flip 5 rounds and choose the same side every all 5 rounds. But by and large, you have to do both sides, and you have to go in prepared to do both sides because you might lose the coin flip, and they could choose the side, you know. So, I mean, my point is always manage the framework. If you want to know how to debate something and you don't really want to go against your own beliefs, manage the framework, which means, like, let's say I want to argue in favor of some government welfare program. Well, I'll try to put together an advocacy that takes that funding away from some other government welfare program so that, and I say this is a much more effective one and here's why it's more effective, and then it reduces the total amount of socialism in it or something, you know. So I would tend to try to frame it against the resolution. And that's the thing, whenever you're talking about debating something, there has to be a resolution. There has to be a statement that's being debated about, or else there's no real argumentation going on. Let's see. What is this? What is this? Getting shit done, or SE? Don't know such. Yeah. Well, are you an INTP? You use both NI and NE. Well, if you're an NE or NI DOM, you will tend to use both, but you'll ignore one of them at weird times. And I think they are fine when they get plenty of right fitty foods. I don't know what that means. Can things be typed as a whole movement? For example, I was thinking about these organized crime families and drug cartels. I wonder if their operate could be a type. It's an interesting question. I mean, it's potential to say that a group behaves according to the values of a given type, potentially, presumably their leader. I mean, you would say with drug cartels and such, there's obviously a lot of FE, right? There's a lot of expectations of loyalty and stuff that's in-group specific. And that's usually an FE thing. Now, it plays on FI as well because it's saying get attached to these loyalties, become familiar with them. It plays on SI as well. It plays up NI narratives, which say, like, these are our truths and these are singular truths. So, and it's against NE. It's obviously in favor of SE. You know, it would like to have better TE. It had failed utterly on TI grounds. So, I mean, I don't know what you'd call that. So I like playing devil's advocate a lot, especially against far left or far right quacks. I mean, the thing is, I don't really play a lot of devil's advocate. I tend to advocate for what I believe in. I do sometimes. I'll advocate some things I don't care about at all. Really, I don't actually care about very much, but I'll pick the side that's more interesting to argue. I'd be happy to argue any side about any position just for the sake of demonstrating the debate techniques and stuff. And I've invited people, like, I would love to argue somebody or debating somebody like Ben Shapiro or some of those big name people that get a lot of attention. I think that would obviously do my channel a lot of good, you know. Do you think values come from feelings, emotions? No, I don't. I think that depends who you are. I think that values, there's a fundamental sympathy, empathy, kind of gut physical reaction to suffering that people that aren't feeling of compassion within human beings. So I think that to imagine a world where we had value of at least that, because that recognition of suffering, that ability to take onto oneself, experience it in some capacity, is obviously lying ethics as a general principle. I mean, we have to distinguish between the good and the bad in some way in order to have ethics at all. So in that regard, I think that there are feelings or emotions underlying our values, but how the specific values that individuals have, that's going to be specific to their type and their cognitive function stack. Values being ones of open communication, discourse, truth, transparency, process over outcome. They're all reflective of my type. They're all reflective of my stack. So, I mean, that's just reality, is people are going to reflect their stacks. And I think that there are certain value sets that are preferable for public policy and certain ones that are not preferable for public policy. And I don't know what to do about it, but I would say that obviously TI is preferable to FI when making public policy decisions, because TI looks at the legitimacy of things, not just the emotional resonance of a thing. There's a lot of FI style legislation that basically says some little girl died in a tragic way. Let's make a law now. It's called lightning detector legislation. You know, there was some girl who died in Florida from getting struck by lightning in a park, right? She lived on for a few years in vegetative state, and then she died. And her mom made a big crusade about getting lightning detectors put in all the parks in Florida. Now that's just dumb, right? It's like, that's not a significant enough risk, not enough of a possibility either to actually prevent that shit from happening. All you're going to do is end up clearing the parks of people randomly for no reason most of the time. 99% of them are going to be false alarms where it goes, okay, the barometric pressure and the electricity in the air is right for lightning right now. So this siren goes off, everybody clear the ball field. 99 times out of 100, there's not going to be any lightning. And lightning, most of the time, it won't strike a person. So it doesn't make any sense to do that. It's just a horrible thing to do. And it's an FI-based legislation. Even if you have no problem with the tax dollars or whatever, it's still a bad use of money. Let's see. Please type Dr. Mike from NF Geeks. Okay. I thought about typing the majority of my Mexican family. They're all ESFJs. Everybody knows that. Joey, Joe, Shabadoo. All Mexicans are ESFJs. Okay, just so you know. I know, I've been Mexican before. When I was Mexican, I was ESFJ. Okay, who's, in your opinion, are the smartest typology YouTubers? I don't know. I can't think of any. Michael Pierce was okay, I guess. Why would someone find it almost physically painful to go to the store and waste time shopping and waiting in line? Well, because it's like, it's boring. You're not, there's nothing ideational about it. I have everything delivered to your house, including groceries. Well, that's smart of you. That's very smart. What do you think of George Carlson as a philosopher? I don't know who he is. Is there a function or function stack that's prone to making their own personal hell, making themselves miserable, even if things are going well, like a personal prison, I guess, trapped in thought? Well, I mean, if there's any type that's likely to do that, it would be INFP. And whether or not things are going well has nothing to do with anything objective anybody else can articulate. You could say, but you've got everything you could possibly want here. It doesn't matter. They're not going to be happy. Because it actually is building a tension of stress, probably. How does health affect the development of functions? Health defined as physiological, familiar, and psychological needs all being adequately met. How would a type evolve through actualizing the self? Okay, well, I don't know about how health affects the development of functions in terms of physiological health. I would imagine that if you had serious physical health problems, that you develop certain particular quirks to your expression of your cognitive function stack, regardless of what it was, because you'd have to make certain adaptations. But assuming that you're saying, how does good health, in other words, having none of these problems, physiological, familial, I think you mean, and psychological, your needs are all met, then what about that person? Well, I mean, I think that there's nobody who escapes deep into adulthood without experiencing some damage. So I don't think that there's anybody who's completely undamaged by life by the time they're 40 years old. You're going to sustain some sort of damage. You'll either have gotten bullied or gotten screwed over by some girl or whatever. Some bullshit's going to happen to you. You'll get victimized in some way. It's bound to happen. So if you don't ever get victimized at all and you're always treated fairly, then you're probably pretty callous. So the thing is, we all, though, I think that there is kind of a clear distinction mark, or not exactly a bright line, but a pretty big line between damaged enough to be impacted in terms of like your attachment style or something, or not damaged enough. I think that's more or less binary. I've got what's called a stable attachment style, and that's kind of like a binary thing. So in that regard, you're saying for people who have stable attachment style, how do they actualize the self? Well, first I would say I prefer to use a word. I sometimes will say actualize myself as well, but I prefer to use the word optimize, because I think optimize is a more accurate way of understanding it. You've got various states of optimality. Everybody does. And they're going to be contextually specific. So my state of optimality right now is not exactly the same sort of expression of self that was optimal 15 years ago when I was more active as a coach, or somewhere 10 years ago, or whatever, it's just I'm looking to live a more balanced life, and looking to be less go, looking to be less alpha personality, not alpha male, but like, always type A personality. I mean, but I'm looking to be less that, and I'm trying to find more balance and completeness in my life. So for me, optimality at this point involves just a basic thing, trying to be more aware of my physical state of being, trying to be more attentive to schedules, trying to have a little bit better follow through, a little bit better conscientiousness in general, maybe, but also trying to promise less, because conscientiousness can be attained through either fulfilling more of your promises or making a lot fewer promises. So I tend to make fewer promises nowadays, and understand that I'm not likely to follow through on things a lot of times. So, that's kind of optimizing myself, getting myself into fewer situations that are time and energy sucks. I'd like to the extent that something requires my emotional energy, I'd like that energy to be solvent. That is to say, to actually solve the problem, whatever it might be. So if I'm putting a lot of emotion into a relationship problem, I want that problem to solve, whatever. Emotion exhausts me. When I get into a state of FI, I have to take a nap shortly thereafter. I just go like, when I get a lot of feelings, it's not good for me. Do you think there are more unveiled? Do you think there are more? Let me see. Do you think there are more unrevealed functions, and when discovered will sharper and type more specific? No. I think the only thing that I can think of that's doesn't really fit into the cognitive function taxonomy is religious faith. It doesn't really fit in anywhere. LJ, what thoughts occur when you did go shopping? What in addition, are you waiting? Are you driving? Please type the bank robbery scene from Batman: The Dark Knight. I don't know how I'd type a bank robbery scene. I love to go into the grocery store. TWFP or die. Lies. Diego is an intuitive. Well, Raul Diego is an intuitive. That's true. He's for sure. He hates censors. Joey Joe Shabadoo, you get sucked into the vortex and can't leave. So does Kim. It's like, and she can't. If I try to hurry her out of that store, boy, I am in for some death glares. If I go, okay, Kim, can we? Okay, I'll smoke a cigarette. Unlike you, LJ, I can't get out of there fast enough. My MBTI tests have always given ENTP. INTP insists that I'm an unhealthy ENFP, and I have no idea what this means. Well, and I don't know what an unhealthy ENFP exactly would look like. It would depend on the manner of unhealthiness, I suppose. But whether or not you're an ENFP or an ENTP is going to depend on whether or not you parse things via conditional reasoning. Are you really good at objective self-criticism? Do you go, you know what, I probably, when somebody's wrong, when somebody else is right and they say you're wrong and they make the better argument, do you concede the point? Or do you insist that you're right even though you can't come up with a rebuttal? You got to think about it like that. If it is in fact the case that when you argue about shit, you're not in an objective make. You're not saying this is consistent with other things you're saying and consistent with what we already know and blah, 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 then you're probably an ENFP if you're not doing that. Well, I would give just as much credence to the teenager. That's a toss-up right there. Medieval 641 just as good as each other. I always feel like people are staring at me and judging me at the grocery store, so it's not enjoyable for me. They are, Dawson. They're all staring at you and judging you. Some of them judging you nicely, though. Some of them think, hey, Dawson's great. Some of them think Dawson's fucking terrible. So you're getting both out for you or not. Just to let you know. I'm there watching all the time. I love all the colors in the grocery store. I do too. How does your NI manifest? Well, it manifests when I'm making videos and stuff like this, realizing I got to hurry up. That's NIFE. Cover more comments and stuff. It say to myself, okay, this video's gone long enough. I need to cut it short or something when I'm making a normal video. It kicks in music, know which parts sound good and which part don't, stuff like that. Okay, well, he says, sorry if I got anything wrong about your answering question. If you don't think the values come feelings, if you don't think values come feelings, that's inconsistent with my understanding of the feeling function. Well, I do think that the values are associated with feelings, but I think values are associated with each of the functions. So my point is simply that there is probably a universal underlying link between all ethics and the physical sympathy that one non-sociopath feels in watching something or suffer. You know, I don't need to have any personal link to the situation at all for it to bother me a lot to watch an animal suffer, for example. There's no logic to it at all. It's just pure FI. And so there's no doubt that underlies our understanding of ethics, the fact that but of course we have to be able to distinguish between good and bad, and that's as organic a way to distinguish it as possible. So what I'm saying is other functions have other values though, and the values that people express in terms of their politics, for example, reflect their cognitive function value matrix a lot of times, and it's not necessarily the case that all values are equal in that context. IFG in the grocery store. That's a funny video to have done so well. That video continues to get views. It's weird. It makes sense, I guess. It's something that everybody can identify with. Everybody goes to the grocery store. It's kind of a fun idea. But yeah, those videos did weirdly well. What it's like if this type goes to the grocery store. Okay, let's see. If a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? That's what we call contradictory premises. So the reason it's contradictory premises is because if there's no observer of the tree falling, then how do we know it has fallen in the first place? To say that it has fallen is to say there's been an observation of its fallenness. To conclude that it's fallen because it was standing yesterday and it's no longer today is not to say that the tree falls or that it has even fallen. It is. So to say that it falls means there's an observer there to see it fall, or in that case, yes, it makes a sound which the observer hears. If there is no observer, then we have no means of knowing that the tree falls. So with contradictory premises, you can prove anything at all valid, and that's why contradictory premises comprise a fallacy. The planet is a small island in the middle of a vast sea. The island is like the one from the TV show Lost. You mean Earth? I think it's more like the one from the TV show Survivor. And in my soul, which type is the least aware of reality? Well, I mean, ENFJ, maybe ENTJ. It depends how you define reality. It's like ENFJ is the least aware of their own personal animal self-reality. ENTJ is least aware also of that, and other things are different kind of things, you know. Ethics, morality, values within a group could be tricky. Human sacrifices were considered morally ethically acceptable and good for the group well-being in some ancient culture. Well, what I would say to that is we have at our disposal a means to determine objectively negative moral prohibitions. We don't have any means to determine objectively positive moral indications, and just by using logic, we can conclude that it's not okay to sacrifice some humans to intentionally sacrifice some humans for the good of others, which is this notion of concentrated harm for diffuse good. That underlies utilitarianism and justifies all kinds of horrible shit. I like that video. You should do more videos where you highlight the absurdities of types in common situations. It's a good suggestion. If a person still fixates on an embarrassing experience from many years ago, I do, to the point that the shame feels like it's become a permanent fixture in the person's psyche, I don't feel that. What cognitive function is the person exercising? SIFE, probably. It was an embarrassing experience. You know, I don't really do that anymore. I used to have those all the time. Associations with shameful moments that I would go shame and anxiety, shame and anxiety. That was when I was drinking, though, and I had all kinds of shame associated with drinking. It's an SIFENE thing. So the thinker says, no, psychopaths have a lack of empathy for others, but to a fairly high degree. So, well, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but there's a terrible disease that's going around called ODD, which is Oppositional Defiant Disorder. Now, if you look it up, you'll realize that probably many of us have ODD. It means being oppositional in ways that are not rights violating at all, but that doctors don't like. Then you have a disease called ODD, Oppositional Defiant Disorder. Your kid's a pain in the ass. That doesn't sound very good as a diagnosis, doctor. Okay. Let's come up with something else. I got it. Oppositional Defiant Disorder. That sounds a lot better than pain in the ass. Sounds to me like a conflict with shame and guilt, not recognizing them as two separate things. They are two separate things, shame and guilt, but so are shame and embarrassment. So shame can come from embarrassment, or it can come from guilt, and guilt can come from doing wrong, and guilt can come from making unreasonable expectations on yourself. Like Kimberly felt very guilty when our kitten died, even though we didn't do anything wrong at all. It just shit happens, you know, act of God. It got under the fence to the neighbor's yard and the dog ate it, you know. But she felt guilty because it was our responsibility to keep that kitten safe, right? That's a guilt from a failure to understand expectations. The only way we could have kept that kitten safe is if we had locked it in the house all the time and it wanted to go outside like the other cats did. Oh, if you're disagreeing with me, thinker, then there's a good chance you have it, okay? Because, look, I'm telling you, you're at risk for ODD. You say no. What is that doing? That's opposing me. That's being defiant. That means you have ODD. Yes, I would say ENTJs and ENFJs are the most likely to work themselves to an early grave because they're polar SI, and they both have SE as an aspirational function, as like an absolute value in their life is getting shit done, doing shit. No, you don't have conduct disorder. That's where you actually violate people's rights. Well, the Defiant disorder is just what people have when they disagree with me, or any doctor, I guess. I'm a metaphysician, so I can diagnose people with ODD. If they start disagreeing too much in the comments, then well, they need medication because they're ODD. My mother, when drunk, my mother vividly recalls every tiny little emotional swipe from 30 plus years. That's FE. That's FE, probably. And she's mad about it, you know. Yeah, that's conduct disorder you're thinking about there, Becky. ODD is just a label they give kids who are being difficult. Like, if your kid's too smart and isn't buying your bullshit, then they have ODD. I can only prescribe metaphysical ketamine. I wouldn't prescribe ketamine anyway. I don't recommend it. It's having been in the K-hole myself before, let me tell you, it's not a fun place to be. It's a little dissociative. It's kind of like, where did my identity go? It's not. I don't think so. I don't like it at all. I found it frightening being in the K-hole. I found it terrifying. It's like I couldn't. I was just like, it's awful. Yeah, and you mix it with certain other drugs, it can be good. Okay, if you don't do too much, if you do too much, you're fucked. And you're not going to enjoy it. I'm telling you, if you get in the K-hole, you're not going to enjoy it. It's like, oh, you have? I didn't enjoy it for shit. It was like, I felt completely like I didn't exist. I hated not having an identity. It's like, hey, that's my ego. I need that. That comprises most of myself. All right, time for bong rips. There's no literature on it. It's just a reality that, are you advocating based on, I'm going to pretend I'm a third party. It's like, look at, if you think about debate, right? A debate judge goes into a debate round, and they are supposed to determine who was the best debater, who won the arguments on the flow. And they are not supposed to bring into the matter what their own opinion about it is. So if I win the arguments on the flow for an appalling policy, I should still win the round, especially if my opponent doesn't say this is an appalling policy. Now, there's some policies that are so appalling that you'd have a hard time winning the round for any judge probably, but by and large, you're expected to be blank slate. You're expected to vote on the arguments made in the round, not on the issue being debated, right? So that's a disinterested calculus. It's saying, I'm an objective judge who's judging on the flow. This guy said argument A. This guy said rebuttal B. This guy said answer to rebuttal C. And that was never responded to. So A and C win the argument chain. It's mechanical in that regard. There's not anything necessarily subjective about it, right? You're just arguing by what's being said and whether or not it's responsive to the other arguments. It's an objective fact. It's not a subjective matter. And it doesn't matter whether it's, say, in the flow. You might, as a judge, be able to think, well, Jesus, the other guy should have said, yeah. But if they didn't say it, you don't judge on it. So that's a disinterested calculus. You're not caring about the issue at all. You're only judging the actual arguments made and their relationship to each other, not to some real world thing. A disinterested calculus is if you pretend you walk up to two people who've just gotten into a car crash and they're arguing and they can't figure out who should be to blame for it. And you go, okay, whoa, tell me this story here. And one guy goes, well, I was just looking at my phone for a second, and then this guy just darted out of nowhere right in front of me, and I rear-ended him. And the other guy goes, oh, I was just stopped at the light. I didn't dart. It's impossible I could have darted right in front of you. You can see that there's a little wall right to the right of me, and we're locked here in this lane. And then you would say, doesn't matter how much the person who's looking at his phone seems to need to be the victim here. He's not. He's the one at fault. And it's a disinterested calculus on the evidence at hand that's saying, I'm going to choose which person is right based on what's being said and what the actual evidence is, not on my preference. It doesn't matter the one who rear-ended the guy is a hot chick, you'd like to ask her out, and you go, you know what, I'm going to side with her, and I'm going to see if I can ask her out. That's an interested calculus. That's your own interest involved in the decision-making. It's not a disinterested calculus. That's the distinction. No, I didn't. You didn't miss an answer. So the difference between FE and FI humor. Well, I mean, I think FE humor, or like any TI FE humor, often jokes about FI shit, like there's a certain amount of shock humor, like goes, and then all the babies were aborted. The end. You know, and everyone goes, that's kind of awful. that's FI polar humor, right? And then you've got more FE style humor, which is, you could think of it as being either a general awareness of what people find funny and how to present funnily or something, in which case you're using FE to be funny, or you could think of it as humor about FE. So humor talks about where some somehow does something very irrational because of an FE display. Like, I can think of some FE jokes. They're basically FE jokes where, like in Family Guy, Peter one time is like killing these Turkish ship people, and he's saying, shh, 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 go to sleep, just let go, as if the FE stuff is going to do any good, right? And it's just kind of a joke about FE. TI jokes, I tend to make a lot of jokes where somebody misinterprets something using TI bad, or I'll pretend to use TI poorly and misinterpret something, and I don't know. What you mean by what kind of humor it is depends on how you're using it. If you're making jokes about it, or if you're using it to make jokes. Why is high school policy debate better in your eyes than college level? Well, for a couple of reasons. College level policy debate is more politicized. It's less blank slate. It's less disinterested. So because there's this sort of leftist movement on campus, there's a lot more political orthodoxy that goes into college debate stuff. And a lot of times the winning debaters in college will be like, well, I have these disabilities and I'm gay and whatever else, and so you should vote for me. And that kind of argument, that identity politics shit, has, I mean, they may be coming out of it now, probably. Well, it's weird because you got a bunch of NTPs and some NFPs maybe. But the other thing is, some of the best high school debaters go on to debate in college. Some of them, but many of them don't. And it's like they think that most high school debaters think the pinnacle of debate is high school. It's at its biggest in high school. You've got massive fields of high quality debaters competing against each other. In college, it's just not as big. It's not taken as seriously. And but I mean, you know, you can see some good high quality college debates too, like Harvard, Yale, or something. You know, what types are all these people who end up being obnoxious, but they believe they are hilarious, but nobody else is laughing? They laugh at their own jokes, so annoying. I don't know. I'm not sure which those people are. If they're too obnoxious, I'll probably avoid noticing them or seeing them as much as possible. One of my ex-coaches who I got from college policy, who hadn't debated in high school but had debated in college, he was in fact an ENFP, and he turned out to be a pretty good coach. But you know, it wasn't the same as having an NTP coach. It was a different kind. It's a different approach towards argumentation. It's very TE. Yeah, very TE. But, you know, I think one of these debate police videos, what I'm going to do is get a find a well-edited round of competition debate online, and do a debate police round on that, explaining what's going on, you know, so that people can and get a sense of like where it all sources from, where all this argumentation stuff sources from. Because when this person asked me above about like what's the literature on disinterested and interested calculus, it's a very TE question, right? I mean, I'm making a distinction between this half of reality and that half of reality that's pretty clear cut and pretty, you know, indisputable. But this person's like, I need some expert to tell me this, Eric. You're not going to be able to tell me this. If it helps, I am a professional debate coach. I've been doing it for a long time, so I do know my stuff. Sam Smith asks, which religion provides us with the best moral system? Well, I don't know if any religion provides us with the best moral system, but if you're saying amongst religions, which is best, I would say Christianity. I think it's a pretty clear-cut answer. It provides the most reasonable moral guidance and the least bullshit, and of the available religions. So I just went to the store today. I got this. This is called Knockout OG. It's pretty good. This is a higher grade than I normally get from the store. Usually I get top shelf popcorn, indica, or hybrid. Today I named my strain, so to speak, and it's a little more expensive. This is $7 a gram, whereas the popcorn is $20 for 3.5 grams, which is about $6 a gram. It's a little cheaper. Well, you got 4 different strains. Yeah, this is pretty good. This is pretty dank, as the young people say. It's dank, and I'm finna smash it. That's what I call lung capacity. I am completely convinced that marijuana has counteracted the damage that cigarettes have done to my lungs. Did you know that drugs are illegal, pal? God among men. Not this drug, not here. It's legal. I'm in Southern California, the greater Los Angeles area. And I just drove about, I don't know, 3 miles from my house to maybe 4 to get this. It's this store in Pomona I go to. It's called Church of Tranquility. That's what it's called. The Pomona Church of Tranquility. That's where I go buy my weed. Pretty good deals. Pretty good, well-priced place. You know, if you go to the big stores down in main LA part of town, they only sell prepackaged stuff, and it's a lot worse prices. So just be glad you have the resin, Jason. Listen, I'm not above smoking resin when I'm out of weed. Scrape and bake. Ain't nothing wrong with it. It's just good old-fashioned pioneer spirit and frugality. To do drugs is morally wrong, huh? Do tell. Why? Why is it wrong to do drugs? Is it because it's wrong? Well, you know, I tell you, those Cubans, they have a long life and low rates of cancer, and they smoke a lot of cigars. Why? Could it be the Cuban sunshine? Possibly. Could it be the good old-fashioned socialist know-how? Possibly. Could be the cigars as well. What can hurt the body? Poo? I'll stick to my BM friend till the next government can more reasonable. Your bowel movement friend. Becky's got a friend who she gets her bowel movement from. Gets it in a plastic bag, and drugs can hurt the body. Drugs can help the body too. Drugs can make the body a playground of adventure, a playground of some fun. I mean, you have the capacity to get high. It would seem a shame to let it go to waste. Mule. Huh? You should try a donkey or an ass instead. It's the sun, beautiful women with big butts and fresh air. What is? Drugs can hurt the body if not taken in moderation. Well, so can cottage cheese. That's why I don't bathe in it. Stress is a killer. It's a juggling act. I'm juggling stress and weed and I don't know, something else fun, I tell you. Let's see. Cannabis is top level herbal medicine. I am convinced that marijuana smoking has protected my lungs from cigarette smoking. Why? I don't know. I mean, I've got a massive lung capacity, and I've been smoking for a long time. Officer Red is inside the house. She and I went worming earlier. It was a fun adventure. We go out to the dirt where it has rained, and I dig up the dirt with a little shovel, and she comes behind me and looks in the part that I just dug up, and she'll pull the little worms out of there one at a time. Then I'll dig up a little bit more, and she'll. It's a lot of fun. That's good. That's good chicken daddy time right there. That's some really, really satisfying chicken time. Where's the logic in smoking cigarettes? There's no logic to it. I mean, it creates and satisfies its own little urge cycle. So, I mean, would I advise somebody who doesn't smoke cigarettes to start smoking cigarettes? No. But all day, every day. Yeah, I do. I mean, the thing is, it has a different effect on me than it would on somebody who doesn't smoke it, who hasn't been smoking it for as long as I have. I've been smoking it for over 30 years. I started when I was 14. I'm 47. So, that was fun experiment there, buddy. You know, it's whatever it is. It doesn't really get me that high anymore, but I'm more comfortable here than I would be if I weren't smoking weed. Well, one of the cats, Normal, really likes the chicken and will sleep right next to her. And they seem to get along fine. The little dog here, Evie, she was standing between the chicken and the garage yesterday. She was outside right at the door of the garage, and the chicken wanted to come into the garage. And the chicken, Evie got too close to the chicken kind of reared up like this and pecked Evie. and got some dog hair. And Evie was like, "Yelp," and fucking bolted off into the house. So the chicken obviously is the dominant chicken between the chicken and the dog. The cats, by and large, stay away from the chicken, except for Normal, who seems to get along fine with the chicken. I mean, the chicken will peck the cats if the cats get too close. The cats don't think they can take down the chicken, and they understand that the chicken should not be taken down, you know? Yeah. It's a good chicken, I tell you. It's the best chicken I've ever met. It's the only chicken I've ever known, but I mean, not the only chicken I've ever had, but the only chicken I've really ever known, you know? I didn't really get to know the other chickens like I've gotten to know this chicken. Deep chicken. She's got a lot going on inside that little chicken mind of hers. Very reflective, very expressive. She enjoys saying bok, bok, bok. She's got good FE. She's got great FE, you know? She enjoys, well, I mean, she's kind of harsh as a police officer. People want to slam her, but I'm not going to, it's a her, first of all. No, we're not going to kill Red ever. Kimberly would kill me if I killed Red. Oh, beloved pet. She will get buried in the ground when she dies. She's Officer Red. She's had a traumatic life already, and she's tough as nails and very friendly and a very good chicken. Yeah. If you get one that's like super friendly like this, then they're a lot of fun. You can take them places and stuff, you know. And they'll make friends with people. She doesn't mind being pet. You know, you want a chicken that doesn't mind it if people come up and pet the chicken, because then, and of course, the other thing is if a chicken does peck you, you're probably not going to get that injured. Probably. I mean, you'd have to be like a newborn infant to get seriously damaged by a chicken's peck. And Red won't claw you because she's, well, for one thing, she's just not like that. But another thing is she's been injured. She got bitten by a dog, and she was rather horribly injured. And now one of her legs is crooked. She doesn't walk right, you know. But Kimberly nursed her ass back to health, carrying her from location to location day after day, so she'd have different things to look at as she healed, as she couldn't walk. Do I eat chicken around the chicken? Yes, chicken will eat chicken with me too. So would you agree that the intuition functions focus on the what, thinking functions focus on the how and why, and feeling functions focus on the who? What are the sensing focuses on? Well, I think that intuition focuses. I think intuition ultimately focuses on the truth of something, the meaning, consistency, and stuff. And sensing focuses on the physical consistency, or basically, like, you know, whereas NI checks any for which ideas are good. SE checks SI, or SI checks SE's impulsiveness. It goes, stay on plan. And I said, not all this stuff is of any value, only some of it is. SI says to SE, don't just be impulsive and do what's opportunistic. Continue with this existing plan. So in that regard, I think that we should understand sensing intuition like that, rather than focusing on the what per se. And the thinking functions, how and why is fair for thinking functions. That's a fair statement. Feeling functions, FI and FE focus on different things. The FE is an interface functions. I mean, like the TI focuses on how and why and whether. TE focuses on how and what to do, I guess, you know. And then FI focuses on, it's not just who you value, but what's important to you. And that includes who's important to you most of all, because most people's most important things in their life are actually their relationships, right? It's not gonna be like, well, Kimberly, it was either you or this pack of cigarettes. It would have fallen in the water. That's why I didn't save you. As she's, you know, lying in the hospital all beat up. You got to understand, I was otherwise out of cigarettes, and, you know, it was a long drive back to the hospital. Pondering getting an orphaned baby elephant as a pet. Really? I hope you let it sleep in your bed with you. Are you prepared to love an elephant the way an elephant needs to be loved? Are you that big beneath the belt? What if it's a female elephant? I mean, you're going to have to satisfy her. Well, hey, what can I say? Drugs are more important than people. Well, that is one of the problem with drugs sometimes, is people get too attached to the drugs and they prioritize it over things that may be actually more important than, like, relationships and stuff. They let relationships go to shit because they're too into their drugs. That's certainly a possibility and often happens. It happened with me and alcohol, but it doesn't happen with all drugs. And one has to sort of have a mature relationship with one's intoxicants and understand what one's habits are. It's hard to change habits, and especially with drugs, it can be hard to change habits. So it's like, if you habitually run into problems when you drink, but you do fine when you smoke weed, or you occasionally do cocaine, but it doesn't seem to be particularly addictive to you, which is my experience with it. It's like I occasionally will do it, and if it comes around, somebody puts a line in front of me or whatever, I'll do it, of course. Who wouldn't do a free rail of coke? You know, I mean, who wouldn't, right? I just like, I don't want to do the coke. I just like the smell of it. But I want more of that. So I don't know. People have individual relationships with individual drugs, and I think it's a mistake to think of addiction as a general problem. People have addiction problems with individual drugs, is my experience. I had a serious problem with alcohol. I couldn't, and I never will be able to, I don't believe, successfully drink alcohol without going overboard with it again. It's been over 5 years now. So that's a long time for me not to have any alcohol. I'd never gone that long since I drank my first drink prior to now. And that's good news. God's P says, when I was drinking tons, I would prioritize it above everything. Treat others poorly because you aren't really yourself. I don't think anyway. Some disagree. And it says it makes you truthful. It didn't make me untruthful, but it probably did mean that I wasn't as attentive to others as I should have been. I was too busy, you know, being a drunk out on TV. Well, I mean, it's a tricky question to answer. How long was I an alcoholic for? I mean, probably since the first time I drank. The very first time I drank, I was like in 7th grade. I was at a family Thanksgiving thing. They let their middle school kids have a glass of wine or half a glass of wine with dinner or something, which they all responsibly consumed. And I managed to get my parents to allow it too, since they were able to, and I went crazy on it. You know, like I kept sneaking myself more until I was drunk. So, I mean, what does that tell you? I don't know. It tells you I like to get drunk, right? I was drinking every day for at least like the last 5 years of my drinking, probably, or almost every day, almost every single day. And for the last year or two, I was I was getting very drunk every day. Yeah, if you start licking doorbells, you're probably doing too much. I mean, the thing is, for alcohol, for me, is a very distinct drug, and it's because it tends to, for me anyway, make poor decisions about the consumption of further alcohol. But then I look at Kimberly, and she doesn't have that effect with alcohol at all. You give her one drink, and she'll be like, "Whoa, that's enough. I'm feeling tipsy." You know, it's weird. So, the alcohol for me, though, makes me make poor decisions about how drunk I am and how much more I'd like to drink for some reason. It just does. I consistently make poor decisions. So, given the fact that that's one of the impacts of the drug on me, it's the only drug that makes me have poor judgment, really, that I can think of, that makes me have really questionable judgment about things, is alcohol. So, you know, I had stopped doing it at all completely. People lack self-control. Do they know how they lack it? People lack self-control in general or about certain pleasures. Yeah, I think people lack self-control about certain things and not others. I don't lack self-control about gambling. I like to play poker, but I don't go very often. When I do, I lose $40. I might lose $80. And then I'm just like, this isn't fun. I don't like losing money. Sometimes I'll win every once in a while. It doesn't make me go crazy about it. So, you know, poker's not a problem for me at all. Gambling's never been a problem, and I do kind of enjoy it sometimes. And that includes playing the horses. Sometimes I'll go do that. But I'm talking about rarely. It's like I haven't played the horses since last time Kimberly and I went to Finish Line. We live right next to this place called Finish Line, which has off-track betting. It's got TVs all over the place, and we got all the different horse racing tracks going on there. Well, we went there for the last race of the Triple Crown, which was won by, I don't remember the horse's name. We went there that day. It was quite a while ago now. That's the last time I've been to the horses. Yeah, I'm not addicted to gambling. That's the thing. But I am to alcohol, and I can't consume a little bit of alcohol and then not think about it. Last time off for weed for 1 or 2 weeks, it was probably in China. I went about completely sober. I didn't even have Adderall for most of that time. And how did it affect my cognitive functions? You know, it was a weird time for me in a lot of ways, I guess. I was getting into like magical thinking, like practicing magical thinking quite a bit, and it was I mean, was my head clear? Yeah, sure, in a way. But there's a need to deal with the self and the impatience of the self that I have, that is fundamental to me, I think. And you have to deal with it in some way. When I was dealing with it in China, I was going to a lot of AA meetings, doing a lot of prayer and meditation kind of stuff or whatever. So, you know, it was plausible. It worked okay. Gambling doesn't seem like a good example. You obviously don't need a lot of self-control about things you don't enjoy too much. No, I know. I'm saying I'm making a distinction between things that I do enjoy too much. Really, the only one I would say I have a problem with would be alcohol. I mean, these are very difficult to quit. Cigarettes, I wouldn't mind quitting them. But marijuana is overall probably a net positive. But the thing is, I could do without it. And if, for example, we were going to vacation in another state where it was illegal and went on the plane, I didn't have any with me, and I probably wouldn't try to take any with me. I might take some edibles or something. But if we were doing that, I'd be fine with the idea. Like, I'm going away for a few days, I'm not going to have any weed. I just think, well, that'd be cool when I get back. I'll get super high. Do I overeat? I mean, I eat a lot. I don't think about overeating as being a thing, really. I just eat when I want to eat something. I don't know. I never think about it because I don't ever really put on weight. I'm about as fat as I can ever be without drinking. I got a little fatter than this when I had a big beer belly, but yeah, I don't overeat at all. I don't really know what that would be. I tend to undereat. Like I'll be hungry and put off getting up to go eat myself something because it seems like a hassle. Sex addiction. Do I think sex addiction is legitimate? Probably. I mean, I don't have it, but I don't know. Maybe not though, because it's like you can only, well, for males anyway, you only got so many ejaculations in you, right? You only got maybe a couple a day, a few a day, maybe. if you're really like to that, like ejaculating 3 times in a day to me sounds like, first of all, one would have had to be early in the morning, and then one like in the middle, and one late at night or something. It would just sort of technically be in the same day or something like that, and then it would just be like being silly or something, just to try to prove something or whatever. But if you were a male and you claim to be a sex addict, and let's say you're trying to just claim that, well, I'm a sex addict, I need to ejaculate 14 times a day. Is that physically possible? I mean, I don't know. Porn addiction. Well, I mean, porn addiction, I guess it's excessive porn enthusiasm. Hello, Kimberly. What's going on? I'm just on this live stream. I'll probably be finishing it up pretty soon. Sure. You want to meet someplace or what? You tell me, lady. You tell me. You make the decision and you tell me, and I'll be there and do that thing, whatever it is. So tell me. I don't know. Me and the ghosts of yesteryear. Maybe Ruben's here? Okay, bye. Well, as you may or may not have heard, Kimberly is coming home in a little bit, as she says, and things are afoot. It sounds as though we're going to be going to dinner. I don't know where we're going to go to dinner. She's not sure if she should bring something home or if we should go out to eat. We've been doing a pretty good job of saving money eating at home. So, okay, maybe we could go out to eat tonight. That seems reasonable. And we might be going out to eat, and I don't know exactly where we're going out to eat. Probably, I would say, let's go. I have to think about where I want to go to eat. Gambling is a big problem that can actually ruin people's lives. I knew a guy who lost all his money, his house, everything, to gambling, huh? That seems ill-advised with that person. Well, where do you currently make most of your income? None of your business. Yeah, I don't really want to go into it. It's not from YouTube. But we're not rolling at all. So, things are pretty tight around here in general. We make do with a combination of our incomes and other sources of income and stuff like that. We've got one person here is paying rent, so my daughter's paying rent from her college fund. So we make do. Is Kimberly a good scale? Good cook on a scale of 1 to 10? Yes, like 9 or something. She may not be like you. If you put her on a show like Cooked or whatever, she probably wouldn't have this beautiful plate with deconstructed whatever. She's not gonna do like fancy shit like that. But she has a good knowledge of which recipes are good recipes for what kind of things. Like she's tried different ones and this one's really good or whatever. And she just basically follows those recipes and her food comes out amazing. And she's really good at sort of seasoning stuff too. She's really incredible. I'm not just saying that she's not even here. She's on her way home, but I'm not saying it because I'm blowing smoke or anything. She's genuinely a fantastic cook. Now, she's not a super active cook, like DSP taking bread off your table. I don't think of it that way. You don't need to be an FE dumb to see how DSP was affected by Eric. I suffered through the whole video. Critics. Yeah, I'd say that video was probably mainly about me. And I think it was well positioned as to be about a general topic instead. That's fine. I'm not interested in attacking DSP. The video was interesting because of the way that it tried to position certain things in ways that aren't really accurate. Like it tried to dismiss kind of what I was saying as just a bunch of possibilities, and he's a funny guy, and it's not really determinant or anything, but whatever. I don't care. I don't want to attack the guy. It gets a lot of views attacking him, but I don't want to do it anyway. Yeah. I could, whatever. He doesn't want my help. That's the last thing in the world he wants. He doesn't want to work with me because he'd see it as. I mean, I can work constructively with people. I don't need to be oppositional. I certainly have the capacity to be totally constructive and try to find things that work, but I think that there'd be a certain amount of. I mean, we have to do some reshaping of things in order for it to be compatible, and I don't think he's interested really in doing that kind of significant work ideationally on what he's already got in place. But I'm an E like an ISTJ. Yeah, but he would need to destroy after work he's done. That's basically what I'm saying, and he's not gonna look. It kind of makes me want to I want to do a video where I basically say, okay, start with these two binaries, start with these two, and walk it all down. And done that. It's hard to get top level enough to make it simple. It's just complicated enough that it's hard to simply explain the whole thing in a way that's satisfactorily a holistic, like, consumable mia. Consumable mia. The most digestible form of mia since proto-consumable mia. The original product naturally knew that it was proto to the current product, and it's being named at the time proto. Proto what? Proto consumable mia. That's right. Now I remember. So I guess I'm gonna wrap this up. Can we go out to dinner? Maybe we'll go to Norm's. We might go to Pepper Tree. Pepper Tree is affordable and tasty. Serves American food, such as Salisbury steak and turkey dinner and old people food. And it's full of old people. And it's quite good. The use of mia indicates bad NE. Just say a random word every time you would say mia. I think the use of mia indicates good NE in the sense that the NETI is determining equivalencies between various things. So it's like saying the most of the meaning of this sentence is conveyed by everything except for the object of the sentence. So I'm just going to replace the object of the sentence with mia because it doesn't really matter what I'm talking about. I can just say reflective of all these people here, and thus you want yeah, because you can sort of fill in the rest of the sentence yourself. It's assuming the other person's doing vanity work as well, I guess you could say, and able to fill in the gaps with their own, probably NI, actually, kind of intuition. I am a rock band in a community of Main Street pop bands. Most everybody else in a different community. Well, thanks, I think, Godspeed. I don't typically love indie punk bands, but some of them are good. I remember being quite a fan of Operation Ivy back in the day. They were an indie punk band of sorts. He made a video with the guy from World Socionics that he talked about wanting some tea, basically. Well, I mean, I'd be happy to provide TI perspective in a respectful way. I don't need to be oppositional, like I said. I mean, I came in oppositional. No disputing that. I don't know how else really to come in, because I thought shit was wrong, you know? So what are you going to do? Hey. I love the tenderness of the dampness of the pool of moisture in your soul. I could be like that. Nerds versus jocks. Am I a nerd? I'm the nerd, right? And they're the jocks? Okay. Fair enough. What will be your big hit series to follow type, please? I don't know. That's a tough question, Ciaran O'Gorman. And I sort of am feeling like I'm running out of people. At least I'm running out of big name people to do. Big name people get more views. What would JSP offer, Eric? What's JSP? I don't know what that is. Jesus serves people. Interview Donald Trump. I'd be happy to interview Donald Trump. I don't think Donald Trump wants to be interviewed by me. I don't think I'm pro. I don't think I'm pro-Trump enough. Not that I'm super anti-Trump, but there's this guy tapping a bong, C.S. Joseph. That's me. I'm a guy tapping a bong. I'm going to, Jason Rodriguez, as per your instructions. I'm like one of those girls on one of those chat rooms that people can pay the money and tell them what to do, and then they do the thing. Okay, I'll show you my boobs now. And you go, ooh, here's another $20. I show you my vagina. Ooh, like that. So it's with marijuana smoking. Lamb. Nobody wants to eat lamb gyros, by the way, okay? Nobody in their right mind wants to eat a lamb gyro. That's disgusting. It's like the most disgusting kind of lamb, presented in the most disgusting way. Meat cylinder on a rotating stick. It's like, ugh, how muttony can you get? No, you can't see my nipple. That would violate community standards. Ciaran O'Gorman. You can see my... I don't really have a lot of cleavage per se, but you can, there, a little cleavage for you. See that? Well, there goes Ciaran O'Gorman. He's ejaculated now, so he's off to go do something else. Well, I guess he's in the middle of ejaculating right now. Okay, good. It's over. Ghost of past, ghost and ghost of future. 3 different ghosts in time. I am in my subconscious. I'm in my subconscious hero. I'm in my subconscious hero demon shadow. Warrior. Angel. My subconscious demon warrior angel shadow is overtaking my conscious hero dagger wielding ninja. That's why I'm like this right now. It's pretty obvious. What is that? I don't know what that is. Right. Exactly. I'm half in shadow too, which means I'm going to type as ISTJ, which is a little different than my shadow. And when I'm waning gibbous shadow, then you know that I'm going to be just like an ESFJ. If I'm waxing gibbous, then ISFP. All depends on the depth of the shadow that falls from the moon. That's how we know things in the world. Ah, Kimberly, you're here. My sweet and precious angelic darling. Precious angel. Precious sweet beloved plum pudding pie. Oh, the tender sweetness of your sugar lumps. Come here. Come here. Joey Joe Shabadoo says, Kim,
Yes.
you get me for dinner?
Cold Del Taco.
Woohoo!
Are you in a live stream still?
That's my favorite kind of Del Taco.
Oh.
I like it cold and old.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Can you fix your sweater? You're not supposed to wear that sweater without a t-shirt underneath, Eric. That is gross.
I'm showing off my cleavage tonight. It's getting me
Eric,
extra views.
That's not even a shirt that's not supposed to be worn with a shirt. What guy wears a V-neck?
Rick Benson. I'm Rick Benson to retards, okay? This is a super cool sweater.
Hi, Jen.
The sweater's known as a panty dropper.
There's not a panty dropper, especially if they could see your silver chest hairs coming out of there.
Shut up, ho.
Eric!
Not Eric, I'm Rick Benson. Okay? I need to hear your mouthy ass in the background, all right?
All right,
I got a V-neck, all right?
Dick Benson.
You know what that means. It means you gotta listen. I'm running shit around here, all right?
Who says who?
Rick Benson.
Give me a break.
I'm cool.
You like what? And paid your tithings for what? His weirdness?
I don't know what he's talking about. Benson gives the people what they want, huh? Yeah. That's right.
We can see your navel with that deep V.
It's a good one. Yeah. Anyways, you and two tarts boring. I'm gonna bail. I got no time for this bullshit.
Are they boring you now?
Yeah, who knows why? Why anybody would be here? I don't know. What are you guys even doing? Why don't you go outside and do something? Losers.
You should talk.
Bye, Rick. Well, sorry, guys. That was Rick. He's kind of an asshole. I don't...
Look how creative I'm being.
Are you heating up my food under the
This
heater?
is not your food.
What did you get me Taco Bell?
No.
So you said you got. Who is that for?
For me.
Well, aren't we going out to dinner?
No.
We're not.
No.
What am I going to eat?
You're gonna eat the wedding soup in the kitchen. This is my leftovers from earlier.
Again?
Well,
That's fine. It's fine. Do you believe there's a reasonable association between handedness and MBTI traits? I don't know.
Handiness?
Handedness. Like, are lefties more likely to be meow or meow?
Oh.
I don't know what this thing is that they're doing. Thank you, Evelyn. I appreciate you saying that. That's great. I have no idea what this is. This is like the third thing that they've done this thing to. I don't even know what it is.
Have you... Are people buying your book?
I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is, Kim. That's what my answer to that is. I don't know what it is. I'm sorry. Really? Wow. Thanks, you guys. That's really nice of you. Look at that, Kim. People are giving us money.
They're not just giving us money. It's because they want a better product.
They want more cleavage, I think.
No, they want a T-shirt so that I can sell them T-shirts, and you need to get on that.
I do have a book, Lovely.
Yeah,
it's available at my blog called riceasrest.blogspot.com.
Invest in the chest.
And it's available there. It's in one of my recent posts. I'm feeling emotional right now because people are giving us money. It makes me feel very FI. Anyway, thank you guys.
Well, they would all know you have a book
that.
if you would promote it more.
I just relax. Okay. Sheesh. I get scolded so much. Kim needs a bong rip. I mean Juan Pablo back there needs a bong rip.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Kim doesn't smoke weed, of course. She's a hairdresser who's much too conservative for that sort of thing. Occasionally she'll have a sip of wine. And that's all she needs to ever do.
Well, you can say what your mom always says, and that's okay.
And that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. And then everybody
it all worked out.
My daughter is calling. Hello, Delilah. I am hungry. I have some cash. I'll chip in. What do you want to order? That's fine. I want some. Kim, do you want Hawaiian barbecue?
Hell to the no.
She says no. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's fine. No, yeah, that sounds good. I got cash if you want to come grab it before you go, or you can get it after you come back. No, I'm not going anywhere. Okay, or you go to a Chinese place, get a Chinese food, barbecue place. All right, well then, all right, well fine, then come get my cash. Okay. Okay, cool. I'll see you when you get back. Love you.
No, actually,
bye.
We kind of prefer him to be out here because then if he wouldn't be, then he'd be in the house driving us crazy. So, actually, he's better out here. However, on occasion, we would like him to participate. And that's a struggle at times.
You find me non-participatory? Sometimes I can be a little non-participatory. Yeah. How am I going to charge this without anything I can unplug there? Charging wise.
So you heard what?
What? How's Kant influenced your understanding of cognitive functions? Yes, Delilah is my daughter. She's going to get us food. And in fact, Love Lou, I want you and Pukoki to type her.
Mm-hmm.
I want Pukoki to live stream. Yeah, Kim's idea, actually. I guess it was your idea, wasn't it? I want Pukoki to live stream it because she normally does live stream, and you to be on that live stream, and Delilah, and you guys type her with whoever's in the chat or whatever.
Lovely. I think it would be very good for you and another woman to type Delilah because there's a lot of controversy. And
I specifically don't want Taylor involved in it because Taylor's part of the initial dispute about her type.
And so will I, and so will Susie's. Anybody that knows.
I mean, and the thing is, that dispute was over whether or not how we were defining TI, basically. So,
so Kim came up with the brilliant idea to have, or not to have, because I would never assume, but to ask Loveloo and Pukoki if they would manage the Delilah dilemma.
Well, the thing is, I would believe Delilah's ESTP. Oh, Loveloo. Where's that SE?
Oh, darn, really?
That's some timidity there. I want to see some ESTP oomph.
Yeah, Loveloo. See, this is the thing. She's not really crazy about this whole internet thing, and I just think she would be more interested if it were two girls that would talk to her so that she could be more comfortable.
Well, I wanted to have an STP in the mix because I want there to be an STP to see if she thinks that she's like her, you know?
Thank you.
She doesn't dislike it, Delilah does not dislike live streaming. She enjoys, she's an extrovert. She's no problem being extroverted. She does get like, but right now I feel like doing this other thing. And sometimes she'll be like, I don't want to go out there right now. But yeah, she doesn't mind it at all.
But she also believes she's an ENTP. I don't think she knows any different.
I mean, she allows for the possibility she's an ESTP as well, or whatever else. I mean, people think I care a lot about it. I don't. I don't care what type she is. I already am quite convinced, against all my own metrics, that she's either a TE tool user or I have to rebuild everything because TE is defined totally differently. So, I mean, TI. So I'm convinced she's a TI tool user. Now, other people might decide something else, and that's fine. I don't care. I mean, say whatever she wants. Even if I were to someday be convinced she were a different type than TI user, it doesn't matter to me. I don't care. She's still my daughter. I love her, obviously. The thing I would note about it is, she and I communicate really effectively, and we both have a similar kind of ability to have a fight, get over it really quickly, and not hold grudges about it, which makes sense with FI polar. How do people respond to her? Well, yeah, people like her, and you know, she's been around the channel for a while now. She's been involved in lots of videos. I don't know if you did or not. I'm just saying, since it seems like a good topic, like it would get a good amount of views, I think. And
we're all up his ass about it.
Interesting. I'm up my own ass about it. I'm curious as to what she is. You know, I don't. It's weird that I don't feel completely decided on it. I still think basically she's an ENTP, but I could be convinced that she's ESTP. She's not an ISTJ. Her boyfriend's an ISTJ. Unfortunately, I wish you were an ISFJ, but they got an ISTJ boyfriend in the mix. It's still a lot more appropriate than the FI boyfriend she had before. I mean, he's FI too, ISTJ, but at least it's T above F.
You had to?
I thought today was Friday night. I'm supposed to go this night.
Well, what happens if you don't go?
I don't know. I didn't go last night either.
Why?
It's like at home too, buddy.
Oh, from work. Yeah.
You
What time is it?
Put that.
Is it lucky? She's ISTJ. Who's ISTJ? Sheila?
You want to go right now?
Is everybody ISTJ? Is it lucky?
I'll wait for you.
I'm just heating up my cold.
You could smoke first too.
Yeah, I want to smoke a cigarette. I just got home and
Oh,
I grabbed this quesadilla, but it was cold. And
I think I'm about ready to call this a live stream here, and Glad's going to be coming home with some. You're ISTJ, Curtis. You keep saying that. You might be ISTJ. I think I typed you as ISTJ, but I don't really know what type you are. You seem awfully active for an ISTJ. You seem to have a lot more
it's kind of working.
Just SE going on. Although SI doms have a fair amount of SE. Jen chaotically minded, you wish you were ISTJ. Oh, Eric is ISFJ. I'm ISFJ, huh? That is surprising to hear. You know, Kimberly and I. So is Kimberly ENTP then?
Take a bite, see how hot it got.
Well, I'm gonna use a little bit of my magical powers on you between two worlds. You're a lady who likes flowers. Am I right? Was I psychic, or did I use magic? Or was I displaying superpowers of some kind? Those are the only three possibilities. ISTJs have time for DWFP. Yeah, well, ISTJs maybe do have time. They're not necessarily engaged in the most earth-shattering of projects. Sometimes they're more active than others. You know, they're unlikely to be negotiating international treaties.
You and
Sarah.
really?
She just wants to go to the taco truck. She just wants to go to the taco truck.
Larios?
Yeah, that's
Some taco truck she's talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's at this little board.
That's
yo,
you okay? Well, I mean, I'm not saying you're not boss AF.
She's talking about that fucking taco truck.
I mean, so they call you El Jefe. El Jefe de los Bosses. That's the boss of the bosses.
I think it's perfect.
ISTJ.
You spend $10 and there's your date.
Yeah.
The more I read about types, the more confused I get about what I am. INFJ is what I think I am, but it seems everyone thinks they are INFJ. It seems. Type is solved in 5 minutes. Let's see. Okay. I like that challenge. This is just my gut based on nothing, okay? Curtis, I'm going to go with ISTJ. You're a lamb.
She was like sitting by her gate.
I'm going to go INTP. Between two worlds, INFP. Sheila, probably INFJ, wanting confirmation. Could be INFP, actually confused. Walter Wiseman, some kind of NTP, probably. Maybe an INFJ. David Schneider, I have no idea who you are. You're a ESTJ. Congratulations. Between two worlds, probably an NFP of some kind. INFP, ENFP.
Prototypes?
Is it lucky? You're some kind of NTP troll, probably. Jen chaotically minded INFP. CJ O'Connell, I don't know what you are. You are. You get to be ENTJ today. G, probably an INTP.
Okay, so before I go, ask
Curtis.
anybody if they're interested in t-shirts.
Anybody Kim's
interested
gonna make some t-shirts.
Talking with famous people t-shirts. Anybody interested?
Just let them know they're coming out soon. We'll tell them when they're actually out and available. Okay.
Okay.
Let's see who else do I have to do.
You have to get them on their hot.
Love Lou, ESTP. I know what she is already. Who else is there in the chat here? Joey Joe Shabadoo. She's probably an ESFJ. Jason Rodriguez. He's probably in somewhere, some kind of XNXP. Thinker, INTP or ENTP, one of the two. Stephen Lewis. I never answered your comment question, Stephen Lewis.
I'm gonna go take Ruben to prototypes.
Okay, you're a con.
Oh yeah, I'll do one.
Give me your address and I'll get some t-shirts.
Okay. Yes. All right.
No, that's what we're supposed to say. Give me your address and we'll mail you some t-shirts.
Oh yeah.
She will be doing shirts for sure. It's a project underway, and we'll get it done here. We got the tool for it and stuff. Okay, yeah, I do go into Apira.in sometimes still. I went there today earlier and spent
the old ones.
an hour there.
Kimberly, no like. Kimberly wants to make some more wearable and beautiful colors.
Cute t-shirts, feminine cut. She's got a variety of different kind of t-shirts she already got on them. We got the materials to do this and stuff.
Well, I don't know if they're gonna be a feminine cut. I think they're just gonna be t-shirts, but I want to do pink.
It's gonna be like this mostly.
No, it's not.
This is just no. What is it called? A
low cut.
No, but there's another word. Something bottom, sunken or fallen bottom or something like that. I don't know.
This is a fallen bottom.
Deep V. This is the deep V. Yeah. It's called the cleavage booster.
Okay, so I'll keep your eyes open. I'll be making t-shirts very soon.
Yes, I do. I have changed my schedule somewhat, CJ O'Connell. I don't really go in during the middle of the night anymore. I'm not really up that much anymore. Kim just bailed, so she doesn't get to hear that. But thank you for that, G. That's good wingman behavior there. I used to think that I was an XNTP, but I doubt it. Well, you could be an INFJ. It's possible. I need skinny jeans. I think I need to have a medallion of some sort. Something that says like beefcake. Beefcake. I think that would be appropriate. I think most people, when they look at me, probably the first word that pops to mind is beefcake. Like they imagine themselves baking a cake that's made entirely out of beef. It is good that my schedule is more normal now. I mean, when my prescription comes in again, it's been like, what's the date today? Well, it's going to come in like a week, a little bit more than a week. But then I'll probably have a night or two when I'm up all night. Not up all night for 2 full nights, but like I'll be up late one night and I'll get like 4 or 5 hours. And then the next night I'll get like 0 hours. And then after that, I'll have regular sleep until I get back up to sort of normal. A special Map Torch Bong edition. That's a good idea. Everybody really, if you want to really get all the wisdom out of talking to famous people, you should be pulling bong rips with map gas torch. Ideally, with colorful lights blinking. They don't have to be red and blue. That's just incidental, but that helps you to really gather all the wisdom into your heart so that it goes and spreads all over your body. Now note, this is not propane. These are the fiery map gas flames of Gaylord's fruit. Map gas burns at approximately 100 degrees hotter than does your propane, which makes it inherently better. Not that you need really it to be hotter, but still, why get it colder when you could get it hotter? After all, it's a heating thing. So, yeah, I think I'm going to call it a night. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you very much for those of you who super chatted me. That's really nice, and I really appreciate that. And I'll talk to you all again soon. I'm going to talk to these ladies, Love Lou and Bukoki, and see when I can set up a time with Delilah. And I mentioned it to Love before, so I got to talk to Bukoki about it. All right, good night. God bless America. End stream.